remember if I cried or if I laughed. I just remember I want my money back. I can't remember if it sucked or if I had a blast. All I know is at the end of the show, when the credits rolled, it said Filmtopiacast 3000.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Filmtopiacast 3000. I'm your host, Greg McIver, and with me is...
Nicky Boom Boom.
Nicky Boom Boom. On today's episode of Filmtopiacast 3000, we are going to talk about the latest James Bond movie, Skyfall, isn't it?
No, that's the little magazine on the airplanes. I think you're thinking of Skybar.
Skybar, yes, Skybar, absolutely. James Bond's mission is to drink himself into obscurity. Sounds like a fun movie.
That is kind of how it starts.
Well, yeah, that is pretty much exactly how it starts. Skyfall?
All right, cut it out.
Skyfall. No, he's on Skype with them, and then he falls down, and he cries for a few seconds, and then it goes to credits. It's the shortest James Bond movie ever.
So we saw Skyfall recently.
Yeah, we saw Skyfall recently. I almost gave a little accent there. Hello, Governor. What did you think of Skyfall, Nick?
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I was surprised because Daniel Craig Bond is not my favorite Bond.
No, not at all.
And he continued to not be, but the movie was very good.
He got a little bit better in this movie. I think they allowed him to have some more Bond isms.
Yeah.
You know.
Because for me, it's not a question of him being bad. Daniel Craig's a good actor.
Of course, absolutely.
It's more just, I don't see him as Bond nearly as much as I saw like Pierce Brosnan or Timothy Dalton or especially Sean Connery as Bond.
No, absolutely. Daniel Craig is fine in the role. I mean, he can certainly handle the action. I mean, so physically he's great for the role.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's not doing anything wrong per se. I think it's just how he's been directed and how these movies have been constructed. He's more of just like a very angry sort of person. I mean, you get flashes of Bond here and there. Like Casino Royale was decent. Right.
Well, they did the gritty reboot thing.
Yeah, of course.
And they, let's be honest, the last two movies they've kind of been trying to bite the style off the Bourne movies.
Yes, absolutely.
And so they made him a very like cold-blooded, hardened killer. And you need Bond to be that. Don't get me wrong.
Right. Absolutely.
But to me, Daniel Craig's like the opposite of Roger Moore, because you also need Bond to be like kind of goofy and charming.
Yeah.
Mostly charming and dashing, and seem like he's having fun.
Exactly.
With many of the things that he's doing.
That he's got this under control,
Right. Now with Connery and, in my opinion, Brosnan, you get like a good synthesis of that.
Yes.
With Daniel Craig, you just get the cold-blooded hard ass, and with Roger Moore as the opposite problem, he's too much of a goofball.
At least in his later movies. I think when he first started out...
you might have a point there.
He walked the line a little bit more like Live and Let Die. I thought, he was pretty decent as Bond in that. I will go out there and say that I am not the biggest Bond scholar you will ever meet.
Nor myself.
Yeah, I've seen a good many of them, but since there's about 10,000 of them out there, it's hard to keep track of them, and... I'm not quite sure exactly where the goofiness in the Moors really started, but definitely it did start, and I think it culminated in, what was it, A View to a Kill, which really the only good thing about that movie was Christopher Walken as the Bond villain,
I buy Grace Jones as a Bond enforcer character.
Grace Jones is
There's
fine
some good things going on
in the movie as well, but I mean... It's worth the price of admission alone just to hear Christopher Walken go, Mr. Bond, you amuse me, Mr. Bond. It's like, that's great, that's fantastic. Like, perfect Bond villain right there. But then you have, like, really silly, stupid things like Bond hanging off the back of a runaway fire truck driven by one of his gals, and him just calling out, Jane, stop this crazy thing! And it's like, now you've gone a little too far.
Yeah.
So, been some hit and misses with the Roger Moore ones.
A little bit of a gondola turning into a hoverboat.
Well, that was a Connery one, wasn't it? Or was that
No, that's Roger Moore. I think that's in Moonraker.
Oh my god, yes, Moonraker. If you haven't seen Moonraker, it's the James Bond movie that took place in space. and there's lasers and such. It's very interesting.
And a Bond girl named Dr. Holly Goodhead.
Dr. Holly Goodhead.
Went there.
One of the great Bond girl names of all time. Although, for my money, you're not gonna get much better than Pussy Galore.
Right. I think we just named second place and first place respectively as far as Bond girl names.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, come on. Just his reaction when he wakes up, he's like, "And you are?" And she's like, "I'm Pussy Galore." He's like, "Oh, it must be dreamy." You know, it's like such a perfect reaction. What were we talking about?
Skyfall.
Oh yeah, Skyfall. I liked it too. Most people that have seen this, or at least, you know, like the critics and like the Hollywood bigwigs have been touting that this is the best James Bond movie ever made. I
wouldn't go that far.
I wouldn't go that far either. And honestly, it's very interesting for them to say that. And in some ways, it is superior to a lot of the others because it does try to do some interesting character things with him, and there's some themes with this movie that a lot of the other Bond movies don't have.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess in that sense, it might be more of a success, but that depends on what kind of Bond movie do you like. Do you like James Bond because, do you like James Bond movies because they're fun movies and they're action-packed and you just have a little bit of everything, a little bit of drama, a little bit of action, a little bit of comedy, a little bit of romance? Or are you looking for there to be a really deep exploration of James Bond's character? I generally fall in the former.
I fall in the former as
yeah, well. Our very good friend Rick Rodriguez said this during a conversation I was having with him. He said, "I don't need James Bond to be Hamlet."
Right.
And I absolutely agree with that. So I'm not saying they were wrong to do the things that they did with Skyfall, because again, there were some interesting themes that they were dealing with. The idea of that Bond and the rest of the MI6 agents are essentially disposable people,
mm-hmm.
and M will send them out on whatever mission that she needs them to go on, and if they die, well, that's part of the job, But that sort of gets thrown back in her face when, Javier Bardem's character, Raul Silva, comes back, who used to be a former MI6 agent, and who's disgruntled by the way, he was essentially treated.
Right. And I think with his introduction, we're getting to the root of why, personally, I felt this was a good movie, because, but why it was a good Bond movie, because they tried to keep some of those gritty elements about, these are disposable people,
right?
Which I think that we've gotten a little bit in the past, but kind of this movie hits it the hardest out of any Bond movie, I think.
It definitely hits it the hardest.
Brings it the closest to reality, but also with the introduction of his character, you're getting a Bond trope back, which is that Bond should have an iconic villain to do battle against.
Absolutely.
We need a Blofeld. We need a Goldfinger. And so now with this movie we had Raul Silva.
Right.
And Bardem, I think, did a fine job of creating like a cool, colorful villain for Bond to do battle against.
Yeah, you needed a villain that could make a splash. Like Le Chiffre in Casino Royale was fine, okay. I guess. I mean, he bled, or he cried blood, which I guess was kind of a cool thing for the villain to do. But beyond that, like, he wasn't really like.
He wasn't a holy terror.
He wasn't like a holy terror, like a villain, or a force to be reckoned with. And Quantum of Solace, I don't even remember who the hell the villain was in that. I just know that James Bond was in the desert at one point. He's really angry. He shoots a bunch of people, and then I think he makes a guy drink motor oil, and that's about it. That's really all I can remember from Quantum of Solace. So, yeah, no, it's good that they did bring a villain in that was, definitely made an impact and was memorable. And, had some interesting motivations for doing what he was doing. Now, granted, we've kind of seen that before with GoldenEye, but...
Right, because, I know that was, like... Rick had some not so awesome things to say about the movie too.
Rick did not actually care for this movie very much. I don't agree with him, although he did make some very good and valid points, which I will agree with. But overall, I still thought the movie was pretty fun.
Yeah, and I when I was watching the movie too, and they were expounding Raul Silva's backstory, I was kind of like, oh, he's kind of traveling from GoldenEye, But to me, that's kind of okay. It's
he works a little bit better than Trevelyan for me though, because I don't know, it's a big difference, because in Skyfall you find out that, Raul Silva, he was captured at one point, he was tortured for 5 months, and then, but he did his duty, he did what he was supposed to do, he didn't talk, and then when it came down to it, when he couldn't take it anymore, he again did what he was supposed to do when he tried to use a cyanide capsule, and it blew up, not literally, but it blew up in his face, essentially, and he didn't die from it, it just left him horribly scarred and wounded.
We may be spoilerizing at this point.
It's not something that, it's not going to ruin the movie for them, I don't
true.
think. But anywho, so there was, like you had said yesterday, there was sort of a line of progression, of it working towards, finally the straw that broke the camel's back. Trevelyan didn't really get that.
Yeah.
They go on a mission together at the beginning of GoldenEye. Trevelyan gets shot, I believe, and, he looks into Bond's eyes and he basically says, bring them all down, finish the job or something like that. So he's totally on board with what Bond is doing right now. It's not like he gets shot and he looks at Bond and he's just like, why did this happen to me? Or it's not like he got shot and trapped and then Bond just like looked at him and was like, I'm sorry, and then takes off in the other direction. He's like, James, don't leave me, or anything like that. Like, he was fully on board with the idea of what MI6 was right up until the very end. But I guess in his downtime, he had some time to think about it. And...
Well, I thought too that, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't Trevelyan like faking his own death and doing a double cross at that time?
You know what? I don't remember.
I think that Trevelyan fakes his own death at the beginning, but then he didn't count on James blowing shit up, and that's
so he almost died for real.
So he almost died for real.
I don't actually remember. Folks, if you know or if you remember, post a comment on this YouTube page or the website www.nerdtopiacast.com.
The other reason that's not a problem for me is how many times has Bond taken on a corrupt millionaire, billionaire figure?
Right.
It's not like we've never had
a
same type of character.
Well,
that
hell,
doesn't make him the same person.
Yeah, well, hell, he's fought the same villain before. Blofeld is in, how many movies?
Well, sure.
So it's, again, yeah, it's not a deal breaker for him to fight somebody with similar circumstances or a similar background, but
I just love that Sam Mendes grabbed the wheel of the Bond franchise, which was really just turning into more Bourne movies.
Right.
And he's gently guided it back into Bond movie territory by reintroducing some of the old magic, some of the old classic things we need in the skeleton of our Bond movie.
Mm-hmm.
You need a Bond girl, you need a Bond villain, you need him to drive an Aston Martin at some point.
Yes.
He has to have, at least a cool gadget.
You need some good back and forth bantering going on, whether it be between him and his lady friends, or even between him and Q. They
brought Q back.
They
of course.
brought Q back, which thank goodness.
And he's involved more in this movie than he really has been in previous movies.
Yeah, I kind of like that. The idea of him sort of following Bond's movements and progression and kind of helping him out through the whole thing. I thought that was a really interesting aspect to it.
And it makes sense now in a world where technology is so much more important in the field. Like, in the old movies, it was like, oh, I'm Q, here, I'm going to show up and give you some things.
Right.
And now it's like, Bond, we're tracking you. They had him on the computer grid, and they were tracking the bad guy with him, and they were in his earpiece. And
No, it was
good.
It was really cool, that level of participation. But yeah, no, they brought Q back, and guess what? Q stands for Quartermaster.
Who knew?
Who knew, indeed. So no, it was cool to have Q back, and again, Mr. Mendez did recapture some of the old magic, which was what she needed to do. So I think now that they've basically gotten this and the other two movies prior to it out of the way, now they can go forth and they can make a really good Bond movie now, because these three have basically been sort of like the reconstruction or the resurrection, if you will, of James Bond. You had his first movie where he was just starting out as an agent, so he's a little rough around the edges and stuff like that, so you're establishing him. Then Quantum of Solace, you have a very rage-filled, revenge-driven character who I guess needs to learn to sort of put that aside. And then in this one, you have him coming to terms with what it really does mean to be involved in this business, and even facing his past, the ghosts of his past and such. So now that you've gotten all of that out of the way, all of that wonderful development, he's developed now. Make a good Bond movie. Make a fun Bond movie. We don't need Craig in a room anymore crying or brooding or that stuff's over with. He's established. He is now the James Bond that will go on to be in Dr. No and Goldfinger and such.
I mean,
we just need him to act like it now.
That's cool. I think you could make the argument that they could have just done that initially.
Yeah.
They could have just done that.
I don't know if we needed 3 movies in order to get to where we're at, but well, regardless, we got 3 movies and we're where we're at. So yes, go forth and do good Bond things. You've done what you needed to do. You did your homework. You passed the test, essentially. At least with Skyfall, you did. So overall, the movie was enjoyable. There were a few odd moments in the movie, though.
A couple moments that kind of made you scratch your head.
Yeah, there was a scene at the very beginning. Again, this isn't a spoiler. You're going to see it as soon as you see the movie. They're on a train. Bond is chasing after this guy, and they're separated by 2 cars. And so, the guy's shooting at Bond, and Bond's, like, ducking behind this, like, forklift or bulldozer or something like that. And so then Bond gets in the bulldozer, and then he turns it on, and he starts to, like, I don't know, try and get the guy with the arm, or, like, he starts moving towards the guy. I don't know what his ultimate goal was, but it was very weird, because, you've just gone from being a moving target to being a sitting target.
Right, and then the guy does start shooting at him and hits him in the shoulder.
Exactly, it's like, cool, bad idea. And then even then, like, what was your ultimate goal with that? Were you gonna whack him with the arm of the machine? And then even then, all the guy really had to do was run.
Because that's all his goal is to get away from Bond.
To get away, so you should have just run away. As soon as you saw him get into that little thing, you should have just been like, and then just took off, Or if you really wanted to kill Bond but was afraid of that, the bulldozer, you just take 5 steps back. It only has so much of a reach, and then Bond will go as far as he can with it, and then he'll see that he can't go any further, and he'll probably, like, get a little sad look like, "Aw," and then he'll have to get out of the stupid thing and go after him. So, a very odd moment, but it didn't, like, ruin the whole scene. It was just an odd choice, I thought.
Another moment that struck me as very odd, and like, mild spoiler alert, this isn't like a major plot thing, but this is something that happens. There's one point in the movie where Bond is trying to sneak up on somebody who is going to assassinate someone with a sniper rifle. Now, he doesn't know the target, and he's not trying to protect the target. His target is the assassin. Right. So he makes no move to stop the assassination.
Yeah, it's a little odd.
It's a little odd for 2 reasons. One, just because, like, Bond is generally a good guy, and we would like to think that he would stop someone from getting assassinated, just on general principle.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he doesn't, and it's kind of like, well, okay, he's a hard-ass secret agent. Maybe he has a reason for waiting. But the thing is that he's trying to sneak up and get the drop on this guy, and he waits until the assassination is complete, and then the guy is, like, alert and aware of his surroundings again. Whereas it's like, well, you could have snuck up on that guy as he was trying to assassinate his target.
Right. And then
so Bond's target, the assassin, finishes the job and gets up, and then him and Bond have a fight. And it's like, buddy, you could have...
Yeah, just walk in, he's taking careful aim, go behind him, and knock him out, Don't wait for him to stand up with a gun in his hand.
Because it's not like Bond gets there too late. He's, like, scoping this guy out and hanging out in the back.
He's watching him for, like, 5 minutes. Like, Bond, are you a voyeur or something like that? What are you doing? But yeah, no, don't wait for the guy to, like, stand up, as you said, now aware of his surroundings again, and turn around with a big gun and be like, whoa, who are you? Boom.
Now, after the assassination takes place and then Bond disposes of the assassin, he does pick up a huge, giant poker chip, essentially.
Right.
An ornate poker chip, which he then uses later on in the movie. But he had no way of knowing that was there.
No,
that wasn't his goal.
I don't think M sent him to Shanghai and was like, you must recapture this large-ass poker chip. That was not his ultimate goal. He happened upon that, you know. But I don't know. It was a very odd moment. It was an interesting action scene because what they did was, which I thought was kind of clever, is most of the fight is in the shadows, so you see the outline of the figures fighting. You honestly don't really know who is who. You lose track of them, so when the lights do come back up and you see the position that, they're in, it is a bit of a surprise, and you're kind of like, oh, okay, that's, because you weren't really sure exactly who was getting the upper hand in the fight. I thought that was kind of clever.
Mm-hmm.
But waiting for your target to get up and turn around and point a large gun at you before you decide to, grab him, not such a clever idea.
No.
So, again, some odd moments here and there, but for the most part,
very enjoyable. And I've heard some people kind of poo-poo on the final action sequence, but I really enjoyed it.
Right.
That they did take it down to the barest of bones as far as like Bond and his defense of the. I don't want to give too much away.
Well, we won't say, but
there's not a lot of gadgetry and there's not a lot.
No.
It's very like
it's
survival time.
Very like Rambo or almost Predator like.
Yeah. And I like that at one point, when you least expect it, a gadget does a very simple but classic Bond gadget does make a small appearance,
yes,
and it's nice.
That is very cool. Again, the little touches peppered throughout. That for they could have been doing this, like you said, from the beginning. They didn't have to wait for this movie to just all of a sudden pile them all in. It's really as if Sam Mendes was the first director that realized he was making a Bond film. And it was just like, because apparently he's a fanboy, which is why he wanted to do the movie in the first place. And he was like, I'm doing James Bond. Well, you've got to have X, Y, and Z in it, and it's not a Bond movie if you don't have that. But he was able to do it still within the world that was created with the previous two Bond movies. So,
hey, you know what I just thought of? I didn't see Quantum of Solace. Does Jeffrey Wright make an appearance?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, this is the first movie where the character of Felix, who's Bond's American CIA friend, does not make an appearance.
Okay, I was gonna be upset that he was only in Casino Royale, but
yeah.
I haven't seen Quantum yet, so.
Right, yeah, no, he makes an appearance in Quantum of Solace. Quantum of Solace, what an interesting name.
The thingy of Boris.
The something of Boris. Very funny thing you should check out online, a parody of the theme song for Quantum of Solace. And Skyfall is actually one of the first, it's not the first, but it's one of the few Bond movies that's actually not named after one of the books. They just used Skyfall because the other titles that they had available were not very good. Certainly wouldn't sound very action-packed. I can only remember one of them, which was 007 in New York.
I think Skyfall is a fine title. And
fantastic.
I do really like, somebody pointed out that this is one of the first, it's one of the first Bond titles that it's not one of the mission names, it's not something that they're after, and it doesn't have die or dance or final or any of that in the title.
Right.
And that it is something that alludes to Bond's past. That's kind of cool.
That is cool. It's certainly better than what they were originally going to call it, which was apparently Carte Blanche.
That's okay. But
007 in Carte Blanche.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, that's silly. That's
lacks punch.
It's sillier than Quantum of Solace.
Mm.
I mean, I guess.
Well, I don't know about that.
Well, I don't know, but come on, Carte Blanche,
That sounds like we're gonna get French Bond.
Oh. Oui, and what do you want me to do? Shall I complete the journey? Inside joke, you'll never get it. Anywho, but yeah, no, good title. Definitely a good title for a Bond film.
Strong, simple title, which I think you needed after Quantum of Solace.
Definitely needed after Quantum of Solace. Octopussy. I think that was one of the names. I think that was an actual name of one of the Bond novels.
Yeah. No, that was a Roger Moore.
Yeah, I've never seen that one.
It's okay.
Is it okay?
It's kind of in the middle of silly era.
Okay.
Roger Moore.
Octopussy is the name of a lady in the movie, right?
Yeah, I guess she's the Bond girl of the movie, but she starts off kind of as like the villain.
Oh, the villain?
She's like, man, it's been a while since I've seen her.
She's like a femme fatale?
Yeah, she's a femme fatale.
Nice.
And then her and Bond joined forces against a greater evil, I believe.
Okay.
Octopussy.
Wow.
Actually, that might be number 3 as far as.
I was gonna say, yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Wasn't there a Bond girl named Christmas, for God's sake?
Maybe.
Yeah, it was in one of the Brosnan ones.
Denise Richards, yeah.
Denise Richards was Christmas. She was a nuclear physicist.
Denise Richards was a nuclear physicist.
I'm a nuclear physicist called Christmas. This does end with one of the corniest yet awesome Bond lines of all time, where after they finished, having sex, he's just like, I thought Christmas only came once a year, Brilliant! But
the Brosnan era got goofy sometimes, but I really liked it. I really liked it.
I thought he still walked a pretty fine line. I mean, he was Bond, he was debonair, and he was charming, I mean, he, could handle the action when it called for him. I mean, because come on, he was Remington Steele. Of course he could handle the action. But, no, very good. I heard that he was actually considered to be James Bond in the Timothy Dalton era. They, I don't know, I think he couldn't get out of a contract or something like that, but they actually, I think, wanted him for The Living Daylights and License to Kill, but then they couldn't get him. So they went with Timothy Dalton, and then apparently Timothy Dalton was supposed to be in GoldenEye as James Bond. Oh. But then he decided he didn't want to do it, and at that point, Pierce Brosnan was free, so they went with him. Huh. Okay. What do you think of that?
I need to rewatch the 2 Timothy Dalton movies in order to gain an opinion on them. Because I haven't seen License to Kill since that was probably the first Bond movie I ever saw.
That was the first Bond movie I ever saw.
I was quite a youngin', and
as was I. I just remember there's a shark in it. I know a guy gets eaten by a shark.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. That totally happens.
And there's a skydiving scene at the beginning of the movie. That I remember. But I don't really remember much else, other than Bond being very angry and then going off,
Right, and that ends up being my impression of Tim Dalton Bond, is that he's too angry to be Bond, but I think I'm just basing that off of the License to Kill, which is a revenge picture, really. It's a little bit of a departure.
No, it is a revenge picture. I saw, a little bit of The Living Daylights.
I know I've seen the beginning of it. I know there's a Russian cellist or something that he's protecting.
Yeah, and he goes down the ice-covered mountain on the cello's case or something like that, which I know a lot of people thought was silly. But whatever. Anyway, I think he was able to affect a bit more charm in that movie than he really was in License to Kill. Then again, though, I haven't seen that movie in a long time, just as you have said, so maybe we're missing something.
No, I got to rewatch that in order to make a proper judgment on Mr. Dalton here.
Right, no, absolutely. Fantastic name, though, for a Bond movie, A License to Kill, It's, I mean, it's obviously, he has one, and, it's just a great title. Mm-hmm. What else do you want to talk about?
Well, I think one thing that bears mentioning is there's a little uncomfortable scene in Skyfall.
Oh yeah.
We probably should mention that. If you hadn't heard by now.
Yeah, Bond's gay.
Oh. You don't have to lay it out there so bluntly.
Okay,
it's not exactly true.
No, that's not exactly true.
There's a gay scene in Skyfall.
Oh, and I was the one laying it out bluntly.
Okay, this is what happens. Basically, Bond gets captured at one point by the villain, by Raul Silva, who then is interrogating him, and then starts to get a little, touchy and uncomfortable with him.
Yeah.
And, it's basically, taking parts, opening up his shirt a little bit and being like, ooh, poor baby, look what they did to you, and, rubbing a gun wound, or...
Yeah. And it's getting a little weird, and, he's just like, oh, I bet you're thinking back to your training now. They didn't cover how to handle this,
right,
probably your first time.
At which point Daniel Craig smirks at him and goes, what makes you think this is my first time? And and then they stop that mercifully.
Yeah. I kind of took that, though, as more of a mind fuck than anything else. I honestly thought that, Raul Silva was basically trying to get in his head, using a technique that's probably not used very often on secret agents.
Right.
And, and Bond is a very stubborn character, and he's not one to be, thrown for a loop, so I just sort of took it as he just shot that back at him. Now, there could have been some truth to it. There could have been some truth. Again, it's not like Bond just stops liking the ladies in this, they don't come up to him and he's like, oh, no, sister, but, it's... It does raise some questions about 007 or what he does on his vacation days.
Gay friends, I love you.
Yes.
Stay away from James Bond.
Yes, I love you, all my gay friends as well.
Make a gay secret agent.
Yeah.
Stay away from James Bond.
You don't need Bond.
This is the thing, is that it's an established character of like 50 years. You can't just suddenly there's this element to him.
Yeah, it was a very odd moment in the movie, I thought. But again, and if he was gay, there's nothing wrong with that.
Right,
There's nothing wrong with being gay.
No, there's not. But James Bond
is
not gay.
No. Look what you did, Sam Mendes. You made my co-host sad.
Oh, I'm sad.
Bastard. You leave him alone. So yeah, putting that out there. So if you do go see the movie, or if you haven't seen it yet, don't be too surprised by that when it happens. Go in prepared, grip the armrests.
I have a couple friends who are like, "Oh, I'm not gonna fucking see that." No,
come
sorry,
on.
I have bombed.
Well, I have bombed earlier. So it's fine.
I've had some friends who are like, "I'm not gonna see it. It ruins the movie." And that's ridiculous. Like,
no,
that's
certainly
a ridiculous reason.
Not a reason to. No, absolutely no.
Because once again, I do think this is the best Bond movie we've had in a number of years.
Yes, absolutely.
So.
Certainly the best Daniel Craig one. So
yeah.
But
Totally.
I don't know. For my money, man, it's Goldfinger for me. I'm always going to be a fan of Goldfinger. I think that's
is your favorite Bond movie.
Yes, is my favorite Bond movie. It's always going to be Goldfinger for me. That was just such a top-notch movie. Just so many classic things going on in that movie. You had a great henchman and odd job, and you had Bond. I mean, he had the gadgets, and that was great, but you had Bond really using his noggin to try and figure out how to get out of certain situations. I mean, it wasn't just the technology or his fists. Like, he really had to use his intelligence, and it was really cool seeing that.
And there's a couple parts where he's like genuinely screwed,
absolutely.
which shows Goldfinger as a great villain.
Oh, absolutely, it shows him as a great villain. I mean, that's where you get that iconic scene of him being strapped to the table and a laser, about to cut him in half. But he has no gadget to get out of that. He has to use his intellect. He has to, sort of bluff his way out of it. Spoiler if you haven't seen it.
Oh, that's from the 60s.
I was gonna say
no spoiler alert on that.
No spoiler alerts for movies from the 60s. What's your favorite Bond film?
I have a weird one. My favorite one is called You Only Live Twice.
Okay.
And I say it's a weird one. It's Connery era, but
right,
there's a lot of silliness in it.
Yeah.
There's that's the scene. That's the movie that's famous for Bond. They try to pass him off as a Japanese man. It's like 6 foot plus Scotsman, all hairy, and they like throw some tape on his eyes and spray tan him, and then try to pretend he's Japanese.
Konnichiwa.
Oh man.
You.
Wow. So yeah, they do that. But that's not why it's my favorite. That's just something that happens. I will say as a big plus for the movie, it is the movie that introduces Ernesto. Oh, what's his middle name? I used to know his full name. Blofeld. That's the movie that introduces Blofeld.
Ernesto
Stavro, I think.
Stavro?
Yeah. We're gonna go with that. Ernesto Stavro Blofeld.
I'm reaching for my phone. Keep talking.
He gets introduced towards the end of You Only Live Twice, and it's kind of cool because they've been building up to it.
Totally. He's been in the shadows this entire time.
Yeah, you've seen maybe like that Dr. Claw, like
exactly
petting a cat type of thing.
He's just petting his pussy, but
but that is the one where he makes his first appearance, played by Donald Pleasance.
Yes,
and
fantastic choice.
If I remember correctly, he has a secret volcano lair.
Oh.
How awesome is that?
That is pretty.
They went with the
awesome.
Secret volcano lair.
Of course, absolutely. Well, Austin Powers got it from somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
No. I honestly, Blofeld, great villain, obviously. Shitty way of going out in the end.
Which is why I hate Roger Moore era. Mostly just for that one scene. That's my least favorite Bond scene ever because.
Yeah.
So I think it's at the beginning of The Man with the Golden Gun. Anyway, Blofeld is Bond's reoccurring villain. He's
Roald Dahl wrote the screenplay for that?
Oh, really? Wow.
Wow. For You Only Live Twice, the guy that wrote
James and the Giant
Peach
and the Witches
and the Witches and Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory,
wrote
You Only Live Twice.
Oh, wow.
That's amazing. Thanks, IMDb. continue with what you were saying. So sorry to interrupt.
I don't know. That just threw me. I don't remember.
I'll just come out with a bit of useless trivia whenever I want to confound you. They're not saying his full name on IMDb. I'm sorry. So we're just gonna go with Ernesto Stavros.
Stavro Blofeld.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Anyway, he's the reoccurring Bond villain. He's I think other than like Jaws, who was in 2 movies.
Here we go. Ernst Stavro Blofeld.
Great. Okay.
All right.
Stavro Blofeld.
Moving on. So yes, reoccurring Bond villain. He's sort of the yin to the yang, I guess. You know,
He killed James Bond's wife.
Yeah, that's a pretty
The
shitty...
only time James Bond ever got married.
Yeah, he's married for literally 2 minutes,
Mhm.
and then Blofeld just
Drive-bys with the machine gun.
pulls up and just like, hey, Bond! And boom, dead.
Mhm.
So, yeah, poor Bond doesn't get to enjoy married life for too long.
Right, and then at the beginning of The Man with the Golden Gun, Bond kills him in the opening action sequence in the goofiest, stupidest way. He picks him up with like a little miniature helicopter and like drops him down a chimney.
Yeah, that's how he does.
Yeah, that's, correct me if I'm wrong. That's how that goes down, right?
That's exactly, yeah.
And he does it with a little smile on his face, like, ah.
Take this for killing my wife. It's such a goofy moment. Yeah, he drops Blofeld down a chimney. Now, are we sure that's the last we see of Blofeld?
I'm 99% sure you
yeah,
never see Blofeld again.
I'm pretty certain as well.
And honestly, like, I think it's about time they bring Blofeld back.
I was wondering if they
like
were...
Austin Powers is over, that's gone away.
Yeah.
People have mostly forgotten about it.
Yeah, exactly. I was really wondering if they were going to bring Spectre into this new James Bond series. I mean, they were alluding to a secret organization in Casino Royale, although at the end you found out it was called Quantum
Right.
for some reason. And then Quantum of Solace dealt entirely with that secret organization, but I guess it goes away at the end because there's no mention of Quantum in Skyfall. And I was wondering, when I first saw the trailer for Skyfall, because we didn't know any backstory about Raul Silva, if maybe he was going to be working for Spectre or something like that. Not just yet. But again, now that they've gotten this out of the way and they can get down to brass tacks and make a real Bond movie, maybe they can reintroduce Spectre. You never know.
It would be nice. I like that there was a Cobra to MI6's G.I. Joe, you know?
Yeah, no, it was cool. I mean, I don't know how they'll do it, because, I don't think they're going to remake Dr. No. I guess they're just going to, I don't know, they can just introduce it in a subtle way, or, it's like Dr. No was, like, the main Spectre guy right below Blofeld.
Right.
Which was the whole plot of From Russia with Love, was they wanted to get revenge against James Bond for killing Dr. No. That was the whole point of that movie. So, I mean, they could do it. I guess, I don't know, you just gotta just throw somebody else in there, that, and then just mention the name at the very end to get everyone, having goosebumps in the audience or something like that. So, it's doable, but we'll see. We will see. Alrighty then, I think we've talked quite enough about James Bond for one episode. Let's move on really quickly before we go. Let's talk about a trailer that we saw before this movie started.
Which trailer would that be, Greg?
A Good Day to Die Hard. No, I'm kidding. Although we did see that trailer.
We did
I'm
see that trailer.
holding out hope for it. I mean, Live Free and Die Hard, that was not Bruce Willis's fault. The reason that movie failed. So he's still good as John McClane.
Yeah, no, I'm certainly more up for seeing Bruce Willis reprise John McClane than I am for seeing, say, Schwarzenegger pump out an autumn of his lifetime action movie where he's like a bloated
town sheriff. Has to defend his town from
a western town sheriff with a big Austrian accent.
We
bought it when you were young and you were John Matrix.
Exactly,
but I don't know anymore, man.
What's wrong with you? I'm old.
Yeah, we know.
Yeah, we know. Thanks for including that in the movie. It's much more acceptable for Mr. Willis because he can kind of still pull it off, or he looks like he can. And we were saying the same thing for Mr. Stallone as well a couple of episodes
Stallone
ago.
looks great. Stallone's ripped.
I mean, yeah, he's friggin' cut.
And he's a sexagenarian. He's like 64 or something, but he looks like he's like 44.
Yeah, he looks like he could rip you in half.
Yeah.
You know? So, Arnold, just hit the gym a few
knock it off,
just
man.
knock it off or go back to the gym. One or the other. You really gotta dedicate
And we're talking about a movie that's upcoming called The Last Stand.
Yeah, which
is a terrible title.
Which is a terrible title.
And has Johnny Knoxville as his sidekick.
Yeah, I think we mentioned it a few podcasts ago, but neither one of us are very excited about this movie.
No.
Again, they actually have it in the movie. I'm old, you know.
In the trailer, yeah.
Yeah, in the trailer. It's like, we know. So not excited about that. A Good Day to Die Hard, I'm holding out hopes for because I'm such a huge fan of the Die Hard series, or at least I was until Live Free Die Hard, which was not on its own a bad movie. It was just not a very good Die Hard movie, unfortunately, especially since they decided to release it into theaters as PG-13.
Yeah.
So you lose a lot of things that you're used to seeing and hearing when it comes to Die Hard movies.
Yippee-ki-yay, mother.
That's it. Luckily, in the unrated DVD version, you do get to hear him say it.
Oh boy, I can't wait to go out and get the unrated DVD version.
Okay.
Anyway,
okay.
what was the trailer you were gonna mention?
Oh, something called Iron Man 3.
Oh, a little trailer called Iron Man 3.
Yeah, Iron Man 3.
Yeah, I'm pumped about Iron Man 3.
Yeah, it looks interesting.
Shane Black from the Lethal Weapon movies is at the helm now, as opposed to Mr. Favreau.
Yeah, absolutely, and we will miss Mr. Favreau, but Shane has proven himself to be a fine director in the past, and especially with Downey Jr., they apparently have worked well together with Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Which, if you haven't seen it, that's I feel like an underrated little treasure.
Oh, absolutely. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is monumentally entertaining.
Yeah.
With Robert Downey Jr. and Val Kilmer and Michelle Monaghan, I believe.
Very pretty lady.
Very, very pretty lady who seems to have dropped off the map. I don't know where she went. She needs to come back, though, because she was very good. She's very good in that, at the very least.
Yes, indeed.
But,
she's very shirtless in that.
Yeah, she kind of is.
But
anyway.
yeah, Robert Downey Jr. and Val Kilmer have really great chemistry in that movie.
It's incredibly...
little buddy comedy thing.
Yeah, it's incredibly funny. There's some good action to it. It's a good little... film noir, kind of mystery, or at least a take on the genre of film noir, without, being an over parody, but, it does have fun with it,
So then we have Shane Black and Downey Jr. working together again on this movie.
Yes, Iron Man 3.
So that's a reason to be excited. A bigger, for me, reason to be excited is that they're finally bringing the Mandarin into the picture.
Oh.
They teased you in the first movie with the 10 rings being a criminal organization.
They made no mention of it in the second movie at all.
And now it looks like he's finally shown himself, and he's going to ruin Tony Stark, because if you haven't seen the trailer, like, I don't know, it looks like Pepper gets captured. It looks like they mount a direct assault on his home.
Oh, no, it looks like he's going after him full force. And there's also the introduction of, I guess, I don't know if they're going to call it this in the movie, but it's essentially the Iron Patriot outfit, suit rather.
Yeah, it looks like they're introducing the suit. It can't be the Iron Patriot from the comics.
Because that's Norman Osborn.
Right, who's still licensed by Fox, I guess.
Exactly, but they are going with the idea that, I guess, somebody that is not very good does take it over, because that's the main narration you hear throughout most of the trailer, aside from Downey Jr. saying, nothing was the same after New York, obviously, alluding to the Avengers. But, yeah, most of your narration comes from whoever is inhabiting the Iron Patriot suit, because it's actually very creepy, because he sounds very much like, don't worry, people of America, I'm not here to hurt you, I want to do the, but then again, he's still, like, a menacing figure, like, in a very powerful suit, but he's very Mr. Johnny Positive, like, I'm here to help you, so, yeah, it looks like it's gonna be interesting. It looks like they're going a very different direction with this one, because the other ones, have been, at least in the trailers, have been so fun, and just like, you got the friggin', rock and roll music going on in the other ones, shoot the kill, the AC/DC shit happening, and in this one, it's very Dark Knight almost, where it's very bleak, and just stuff's going down.
Well, and I trust Shane Black enough to ride that line and keep it fun.
Oh, I think he will, absolutely. I'm just saying, the trailer they've presented right now is very interesting.
Things do not look good for Iron Man.
No. So yeah, finally introducing the Mandarin.
And I do hope that his rings actually have powers, because now they've established a world where
magic does exist.
Magic exists, and Iron Man's come up against it before.
Yeah.
And I think they can put that in an Iron Man movie, which the number one complaint I hear from people about Iron Man is like, he only fights guys in armor, and I'm like, well, yes.
Well, yeah.
That's kind of his thing, but he does have the Mandarin, who hopefully they'll introduce soon, and now they have.
Yes.
And the Mandarin has 10 awesome, powerful magic rings.
Yes.
And I hope that they do that, because...
Well, I mean, he's wearing them in the trailer.
He is wearing them.
He's also using a gun for some reason. I don't know why.
A gun?
You blink, you'll miss it. But yeah, in the trailer, you see the Mandarin like like cocking a gun or something like that. I was like, well, maybe the magic rings run out of power and he just has to have a side weapon.
That makes me a little nervous, but...
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. I don't think they would deck him out so mystical looking.
They do make him very extravagant looking.
Exactly, which I guess is, what he's supposed to look like. Anywho. So I don't think they would do all of that. Just, have him at every given moment pull out a gun and be like, ah!
Right.
It's like...
The tables have turned, Mr. Stark.
Yeah, so, well, why are you dressed like that then? Why aren't you wearing a suit? Which I actually kind of expected them to go that route.
I did too, and I would have been fine with that too. I would have been fine if it was suited up Mandarin.
Like a business, type
like
thing.
a gangster.
Yeah, exactly. But no, they're going. Did you say they did that in the comics at one point?
They did at one point in the '80s. They kind of redesigned him as like almost like a triad leader.
Right, because this sort of the origin of the Mandarin. The Mandarin was born from the womb of racism, and basically Iron Man fought the Mandarin, who was Tony Stark, and I am the Mandarin, and I think they tried to apologize a little bit by modernizing him a little bit more, like you said, I guess making him like a triad leader or whatever.
Which is way better than that, yeah. It's a shame that he was like such a caricature when he first was on the scene, because he's a really cool villain.
Yeah, he's got some good powers, which, like you said, hopefully we'll see, but... I can't imagine them shying away with it. I mean, we've seen the Avengers, and there's magic in that. I mean, Thor is just filled with magic, so it's like it's been introduced. Nobody's going to not believe it at this point. At least nobody involved in Iron Man's inner circle is not going to believe it. So we'll see. I'm excited about the movie. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, we'll find out in spring next year.
We'll find out in spring next year. Tune in then.
I think it's smart of them to do that too, it's the same thing they did with the Avengers. They jumped the gun on summer blockbusters.
Yes. Not a bad idea. A cue that I think they took from James Cameron, who with Titanic and Avatar, he didn't just jump the gun on the summer movies. Like, he just left them, because he debuted those movies in wintertime, where nothing comes out. Nothing good comes out in wintertime. And I think James Cameron realized this and was just like, no competition.
Now good things come out in wintertime.
Well, yeah, I guess maybe he
started a little fire with that, because now... Next month we got The Hobbit.
Oh, that's true.
We've got Django Unchained.
Oh,
we've got Lincoln.
Yeah, I'm excited about all of those movies.
Mm-hmm.
No. If I sounded hesitant, no, I'm very excited about Lincoln too. But it's kind of difficult to stack Lincoln up against Django Unchained and The Hobbit, because it's Lincoln. Hi, Lincoln. Hey, buddy. But no. Those are three fantastic looking movies that are coming out, and you're absolutely right. This is going to be an exceptional winter as a result.
Winter's coming.
Winter is coming.
Actually, it's kind of here already.
Yeah, it's already
pretty
here.
cold out.
Yeah, if you're here in New York, it's really chilly out right now. Winter, I know in the world of Game of Thrones, winter lasts like a really incredibly long time, and it is a thing to fear, but still, if you don't have that knowledge, that quote or phrase from Game of Thrones just sounds really lazy. Winter is coming. Yeah, and then after that we'll have spring, and then summer, and then fall, and then we'll go right back to winter.
Well, that's why it takes place in the Game of Thrones world, so you have to know about...
I'm just saying, I used to hear people saying that all the time, and then not knowing Game of Thrones, I thought they all sounded a little silly,
I guess. It's kind of the same concept of like, memento mori, of like, death will come for us all, It's like... It's inevitable that hard times are going to come, so be ready for them.
Yeah, you might be right.
I might be.
You might be right. Well, folks, he might be right, and if he is, we'll let you know next episode, because that's really all the time we have for this episode.
Indeed.
But I want to thank you for joining us for this action-packed little romp that we went on. Please tune in next week where we're going to talk about, surprise, surprise, movies. More movies. So yes, again, thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Greg McIver, and with me has been
Nicky Boom Boom.
And we will see you next time.
This has been a production of the Nerdtopiacast Internet Network. Be sure to check out more podcasts, videocasts, and articles at nerdtopiacast.com.